how are you? Are you okay? Are we groovy? Have you had a hard time recently? Have you been hitting the sauce? Have you been putting it on your chips? It depends, so many different uses of the word sauce. Are you saucy? There's another use. My name is Dave Crane, welcome to Speak on Stage. It's an honor to have you with me. I want to share a load of stuff today, and it's a subject I wanted to cover for quite some time. And I just haven't done it because I haven't got around to it, but it's a super important subject. Basically, this is what I want to talk about. How to get a top job in a post-COVID gig economy. Big thing, really, on lots of different levels. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's just dissect that whole thing. And by the way, we're broadcasting live onto LinkedIn, onto YouTube, onto Facebook, onto Periscope, into Twitter, and into Twitch as well. Twitch, you may know, is like that, unless you're a gamer, in which case it's like that. So, splitting it into little segments, that whole title there, how to get a top job, not just a job, but a top job, something that you really do enjoy. I'm not saying you shouldn't take any job, because money is money, but I'm just saying how to get a top job in a post-COVID world. Right, so the way the world was before, the way the world is right now, and then the third bit I wanted you to look at was a gig economy. And you're probably saying, what is a gig economy? A gig economy will be explained, but rather than doing a whole job forever, there's going to be a lot more people doing a freelancey bits and pieces here to lots of different masters kind of job, if that makes sense to you. What I'm talking about is the fact that as things change, sometimes you have to change with it. There might not be so many quite obvious jobs where you go along, you go into the office, you say, I'd like to work here. They say, fantastic, that's great. They'll meet everybody, and we'll ask a couple of questions, then come back, whatever it is that we normally do for a job interview. They might not have a job like that because everything we've ever done until now has been based on getting jobs in an office. But what if the office doesn't exist? What if the idea of going to work for somebody in their premises doesn't exist? If that's the case, then you're going to be probably living at home and working on your own for a master. Well, if that's the case, you're not going to be working necessarily with other staff, or they're all remote. Then the odds are, why work for one company when you could work for lots of other companies? Why even work on one job description when you could have several other plates spinning at the same time? And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, Dave, but that's not the way it works. Well, I can tell you now that all the big players who are responsible for creating software for working remotely are now saying, let's keep it that way. They don't want you to go back into offices. They want you to have to go through their system where ultimately the bosses will be paying a fee every month or every week or every day or every year to have remote software that keeps everybody closer together while at a distance. So the longer that coronavirus goes on, with or without a vaccine in place, it's actually good for them to roll out the new kinds of software. Now, does it mean that that's going to stay like that forever? I think yes, I really do. I think the idea of staying in a home where you choose where you're going to live, where you can spend more time with your family, where you go to work in a room, but if you want, your dogs can pop in and you can stroke them and go away. Your kids can give you a hug and kiss when you come out from school. You can pop downstairs, have lunch, have dinner, go back into your office, carry on working, work late hours, work overnight, work without working in the morning. Just take your time off and go shopping with your family, as long as you hit those targets and as long as you do it. For many people, that's going to sound a lot more appealing. And I can understand why. So that's why today's show covers a lot of different things. We're going to be examining your LinkedIn profile and how to optimize that. And be talking about the way that you'd have to pitch yourself to get a job at Google. They break down what that job would be. Why would I talk about Google? Not everybody wants to get a job at Google. Well, we're going to be looking at the kind of jobs that do exist, the kind of opportunities that are there for you. And many of them, in fact, are going to be in the tech space. The tech space and the food space and a handful of other spaces haven't altered one bit because of COVID. In fact, to be honest, if anything, they've just come faster, closer to where you are. So we'll also be looking at the reskilling that you need to do to be able to optimize what you already do and make it so it's much more appealing to lots of different organizations. So I hope that's of interest to you. That's what today's show is about. So we're going to be talking about that in some depth. And I know you're going to say, Dave, what do you know about all this? And I'll tell you exactly what I know once you've got yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, because you need that, because this is Speak on Stage. Cheers. there we go, and I'm back again, and hello to you. And I'll put my coffee down here, which is always nice. Actually, I've got tea today. I had too much coffee earlier, and if I have too much coffee, I start to go, whoa. People say, Dave, stop shaking all over the place. Where's the coffee? It just tastes so good. All right, so let's just stop there. Right, I'll tell you my job situation, which is why I believe I have an insight into this. I've worked for myself on and off now for about 30 plus years. And when I say work for myself, I mean I work for me, Dave Crane, my own organization, my own company. Sometimes has a lot of staff, sometimes only has me. And now at this moment in time, it has staff all around the world who work for me but don't come into my office and haven't. So when it comes to coronavirus, I've been able to shift and pivot faster. So you're saying, Dave, okay, well, that's fine for you. What about the rest of us? We're used to having a job. Let me illustrate exactly how I came to this situation, so maybe you can find some insights that'll be useful for your changes as well. So when I got into the job market, I wanted to work as a BBC radio journalist. I wanted to be a DJ on the radio, going back about 30 odd years. So I studied to be a great entertainer, working on the holiday resorts in the UK. If you Google Butlins, you'll understand Butlins, or Warners. You'll see the kind of work you can do with people to understand how to do games, exercises, entertainment. It's basically going to university to learn how to entertain people. So I spent about 2 or 3 years doing that. Then after that, I wanted to become a journalist to go and work for the BBC, because the BBC was going for a real change at the time. Once upon a time, I grew up wanting to be a radio DJ, but then we changed it to being a jock. Well, that was a jock. A journo jock was a new phrase. A journo jock is somebody who's a journalist but a DJ as well. They wanted all their presenters to have journalistic training so they could fill the gap at the BBC and say, look, we're a news organisation. We're not an entertainment organisation. We've got some entertainment that we do. We do it really well. But as far as radio goes, we're going to concentrate on the news that goes on culturally in our location and let the DJ radio with all the music go on somewhere else. And it was a smart move to make, because if you don't diversify, how can you justify that people should pay you a license fee for you to exist and then use it for lots of different stuff? So I went, okay, and I became a journalist, and I started working for my local BBC after I'd shown that I got a postgraduate diploma in radio journalism, which is really quite good, because I went away to law school, didn't finish my law degree, went away to study and become an entertainer, and then I worked at my local radio station, just freelance. They said to me, great, go away and get studied. I got studied, I got a postgraduate diploma in radio journalism. Then I went back and worked for them. I worked for them for about 3-4 years. But here's the thing, I worked as a freelancer. This is BBC Cleveland, northeast of England. And so as a freelancer, yeah, I got paid good money, sometimes in news, sometimes in programs, got to drive a radio car, do live broadcasts, all that kind of thing. The only thing I didn't get was a real job. I could be a freelance, and that was it. So it kind of frustrated me, because I wanted to work in radio. I wanted to get the opportunity to take it to a high level. And so I started applying for jobs all up and down the country, BBC jobs specifically, because I realized at the time there was a real challenge in the fact we weren't employing enough black kids, young men, young women, and people of colour, because it was a very white organisation. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing the BBC, I'm not bashing white or black, I'm just saying what my situation was at the time. This was in the early 90s. So I went for a number of job interviews that were only for coloured people, because they realised that they need to get more coloured people in. And at the time, let me just illustrate to you exactly what I was doing at the time. So at the time, I was working as a freelancer at the local BBC station and producing stuff that was going onto the network across the region. I was running a magazine across the region as well. In my hometown, that was doing really well. I was DJing in lots of different events and hosting a lot of events that were coming up. Plus, I was working with the Prince's Trust. The Prince's Trust is an organisation which was associated with Prince Charles, and it helped lots of young people find employment, get out over long-term if they hadn't had jobs, or they'd been on drug problems, or they'd been depressed, or whatever it was working with young volunteers. So that's a pretty good, in my opinion, that's a pretty good job description for somebody that you'd want to take on as a kind of apprentice, even though has been working in the job as a freelancer, and get them into your system. Well, clearly not. I spent about 1.5 years going for these jobs and not getting anything at all. I could still go back as a freelancer and work where I was, but nobody wanted to give me a proper job. Now, I know you're saying, yes, but Dave, it's a numbers game. Well, yeah, okay, but how much more do you want me to do? I'll tell you what, I did one more thing. I went onto a TV show called Blind Date, and you can Google this, you can find it on YouTube. Blind Date was a dating game. I threw all my cards at this one thing. So, Blind Date was a dating game. It was a comedy reality TV show, one of the first of its kind, where young people, men and women, would go on to behind a wall and basically try and get the other person to choose them out of three people to go for a date. You can see the show yourself. And I won the Christmas show. 20 million people watching the show, and I went away to Lapland with this young lady who was very nice but hated me for whatever reasons, and that's a completely different story. So anyway, I came back from that, and I said, guys, what do you think? And they went, well, we don't think that your future lies in radio or journalism, so you can go. At the same time, I was pitching for jobs in entertainment across Britain. So I got lined up for about 3 or 4 really big jobs. Now, here's the thing to remember. That's going back 30 years ago. So you didn't have the ability to email people. You didn't have the ability to attach a video or send people to a website. None of that existed. You had to get a VHS. A VHS was about the thickness of this, about the size of that. So imagine this, if it was like that square, well, rectangle, okay? Really thick piece of kit. And you put your video on there. And you'd have to physically send it as a parcel, snail mail, not like you get it arriving the next day. You'd send it and arrive a couple of weeks later. So I got my TV appearance. I sent it out to lots of different places. And I got auditions for a couple of them. I was lined up for shows that you wouldn't know if you don't live in the UK. Big Breakfast, Close Show, MTV, and don't forget your toothbrush. Big shows in the UK at that time, 30 years ago. And all of them said, right, okay, that's really interesting. We like you. Come for an audition. Some did, some didn't. But then 3 months later, they basically turned around and said, well, Dave, you know what else have you done? Nothing. But I had that chicken and egg situation. How can you prove what you can do if they only give you one go? And they want to see more. So show me a chance, I'll show you more. And it just became really challenging. So I realized the big challenge was, living in the northeast of England, I should move down to London, where all the excitement is, where all the shows were, where all the other things were going on. So I went for a number of job interviews in London, and I decided I didn't want to live there. It just didn't work for me. It was colder, people seemed colder, it was more expensive, and coming from northeast of England, they're a lot more friendly. And also I just got disgruntled. I'd lost my BBC job by throwing myself as hard as I could do at trying to be seen and discovered. And don't get me wrong, at no point was I saying, look at me, I'm famous. I went into work the next day wearing my suit and my tie and doing all the stuff I should have done as a news reporter. It was just my time for them to get rid of me for whatever reason. I won't say race because that's unfair, because I'm not throwing that at the BBC, certainly not throwing at the BBC, but I think in the case of a particular boss who'd taken over at the time, he just didn't want me working there, for whatever reason. So I ended up leaving the UK and coming to live in Dubai. Now this is where it gets really interesting, because I moved to Dubai just to take a job anywhere. I worked as a entertainment manager in a sports bar in the Marriott Hotel in Dubai. And within 2 years, I was working full-time at a radio station, and shortly after that, I was a station manager at this radio station. We became the most popular station, and it's not just down to me, it was down to the mindset of Dubai and the fact people saying, if you can do it, go do it. And if you can't do it, we'll get rid of you. But that go-get-it mindset really formed the way I was as a person. And it made me realize that from this point on, I'm only going to do stuff that works for me, that I'm brilliant at doing, and that I love doing. And that comes 100% from Dubai. I've got to say, it's the first place to recognize me and not say there's a color of the skin here. We're just saying we're interested to see what you can do. So that's a long-winded story to tell you basically where I come from, because when I tell you where I come from, it makes it a lot more understandable to see why I should talk about the gig economy and why you should find your place in it. So today's show is about helping you to get a job. Today's show is really about sharing with you a number of different ideas that maybe you hadn't come across, hadn't thought of, but if you do start exploring them, you can start doing some incredible things for yourself. So let's look at that. Let's start off with the very basics of who you are, what you do, and also where that should position you when it comes to actually being successful. I want to talk about your brand. I want to talk about who you are with your brand. I want to talk about all those different elements that really make you tick. But let's start off with the hedgehog concept. So as I throw this in, you're able to see 3 circles. First of all, the blue one, what you're the best at doing. That is, what are you feasibly the best in the world at doing when it comes down to it? Move it to here so you can see it properly. If you look at your CV and look at all the different things you've done, what is it that you keep excelling at? That's what we're looking at. Next one here is, what are you passionate about, the red one. What do you love doing so you'd never get bored of doing? You could do it all the time and it doesn't matter what they say. You know, could you, yes, I'll do that. Do you want to do this? Yeah, I'll do it. Just give it to me. I love it. And the third one, the green one here, is what drives your economic engine. What will people pay for? Now, it's important to get this right before we start the whole journey today. Think about it. You want to get in the center of this particular diagram. So if you don't, you end up in a situation like this. You do something that you're really good at, you do something that you really love, but nobody wants to pay for. It's not realistic. You do something that pays really well, you do something that you really love doing, but you're not very good at. You're not realistic about it at all. It's not sustainable either. But do something that you're brilliant at, do something that they pay for, but you hate. You're going to be rich but bored. And for example of that, I want to tell you about the people who work in the stock exchange, the stock market. Yeah, they make incredible money, but the burnout rate is intense. I've known people who became millionaires before they were 30. And when you meet them, yeah, they've had a great lifestyle, but it feels like meeting somebody who's retired, like somebody who's almost given up. And there's visibly burnout. Even though they can afford anything they want, they just feel kind of hollow. So therefore, by getting all 3 of those things, you create your hedgehog concept, which is what I call it, your ability to be the best of all the different things. And that's what your job should ultimately be about. So today's show, we're going to be sharing with you all about how you get that job. Before that, let me share with you one little thing, which is what I will be sharing about the Industry Icon program, which is ultimately how you create the very best gig economy situation of all time. Something you can sustain, make a ton of money out of, and it will take you to be happy every single day. So if you just joined me, welcome to Speak on Stage. We're going to be looking at how to get you a job in a post-COVID world. But meanwhile, let me tell you about what it is that I will share with you. The Industry Icon program is all about helping you to become an incredible speaker. But not just a speaker, somebody who can create something that the world turns around and says, wow, speaking, communication, branding, all now in the same package. So if you look above me here, this is the website Speak on Stage. You'll see a gold button there saying the Industry Icon. Click on that and it will take you to a brand new page. Scroll down and you'll see a button here, take the free survey. When you click on that, you'll get to do a survey on how powerful your brand truly is. Once you do that, then you can start investigating what you need to do to really position you well. Now, when you are really strong in your brand, it doesn't mean you're necessarily working in a job. You could be in a job or maybe not in a job. You could be working for yourself. You could have a small business. You could be, a manager or a director in somebody else's business. It doesn't matter. Your personal brand is important, and that's what we work on, getting you to be an industry icon. So if you want to do that, have a look at Speak on Stage, move your way through, get onto the Industry Icon program, have a look at it, connect with me, and you can book a 10-minute chat with me directly to see how I can help you. And I guarantee it will change everything. Meanwhile, now, with no further ado, let's get stuck into teaching you how to become successful in the new gig economy.
For years, the norm for a job has been permanent full or part-time employment. But recently, more and more people are beginning to take on a variety of short-term jobs, also known as gigs. These include things like freelancing, temp jobs, jobs in the sharing economy, and more. All of these different jobs form something called the gig economy. The gig economy is beginning to take up a larger portion of the workforce, and studies show no sign of it slowing down. This is partially due to the evolution of technology. Companies are now able to hire workers anywhere in the world who can then easily telecommute and work remotely for them. Mobile apps have allowed businesses like Uber and Airbnb to grow an enormous amount of contract workers. And social media has given people the ability to market themselves and sell their products and services at a much cheaper cost than traditional advertising. It's hard to say exactly how the rise of the gig economy will affect and change the future of the job market, but we do know that both companies and workers will need to continue to adapt to it.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
So there you have it. There you have it, looking at the origins of the gig economy. That video was actually made before the coronavirus, but it's a great explainer video for what gig is actually all about. Now you might be thinking, oh my goodness, gig, that means that I work for myself, does it? Does it mean that I don't get pension? I don't get holidays? I don't get, expenses? And the answer is yes, but think about it. You're working from home. That's what everyone's pretty much doing anyway. There will be a change that happens in every organization where they review, if you're working from home, whether you're going to get your expenses and your travel and your holidays and all those things anyway, because you're going to be effectively working for a different property. They might not even consider, if they don't hire their office, they might not even consider giving you an extra bit of money because you're working from home. So if you've got to do all those things yourself anyway, why not do it on a plane where you feel completely in control? Does it mean you get exploited by some people? Maybe, but it also means that you're now looking at a job market where you could work with anybody all around the world, not just the people that you've been connected to in your particular property. So with that idea, how do you get hired? We're going to be looking at how you get hired. We're going to look at reskilling. We're going to also be looking at how you can work for Google. Now, when I talk about Google, I'm not really talking about Google. Well, I am, but I'm not. Here's the thing. Working for Google would be one of the best jobs ever, obviously, or Facebook, at any of those big tech companies, but new tech companies are popping up all the time. And they usually form themselves around the idea, if we were a mini Google, how would we be? Once you understand what Google are looking for, then you're in a much better position to be able to approach some of those startups and get in at an early level. No guarantee that everything is going to work forever, but it gives you a massive opportunity to maybe be there from the very beginning with something that should turn out to be incredibly special and lucrative. So next up, let's look at how you get hired in a post-pandemic economy. I love your thoughts, I love your comments. We're broadcasting live across the world, and this is Speak on Stage.
The ones that are really thriving, hiring and expanding at this point in time is tech across the board. If you talk about video conferencing, obviously that's a big thing right now. Anything that is Amazon, logistics related to support, e-commerce. So what we've seen is insurance, fintech, anything that's tech related has been not really been impacted at all.
We still see demand for people with strong skills in supply chain management, procurement, and particularly the ability to influence and interact across different cultures and demographics. We've seen very high levels of activity in terms of recruitment demand from Chinese-owned companies, whereas we still see multinationals be very cautious. We're also seeing Chinese companies be fairly bold and expansive in terms of the hiring activities outside of China, particularly in Southeast Asia.
The short term may look very challenging, but the mean term and the long term is how well are you going to use this crisis to, upgrade yourself, volunteer, think of creative ways that you can expose yourself to different projects. Because the most important thing right now is to gain experience.
We're also seeing scenarios where candidates are taking on board internships as opposed to formal graduate programs, and and often those roles have a lower level of remuneration.
Don't really think too much about, designation. Don't think too much about entry or starting salary. Think about how do I get exposure, and think of working with companies that give you an opportunity.
A question I've heard from a few people, which I think is a really good one, is how did you set up your working environment during a lockdown? Most employers will want someone who's got a level of resilience and has shown that they're able to operate successfully in ambiguous environments. It's very difficult to predict what's likely to happen in the next few months. We need people that are able to deal with challenges, but also see opportunities.
So there's some insight into the kind of things that are happening in the job market. And as they say there, don't worry about your starting salary. Don't even worry about the positioning that they're going to give you. Right now, everyone's fighting for so much. And you're also fighting against people who've been established in the work market. If you're a student, you're up against people who've been working for 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30 years. People who are going to get laid off anyway. I'm not going to talk too much about this right now, but it's an important factor to remember. If you have got grey hair like me, and you were worried about the fact that they may lay you off, and you got to a very senior position, but you're very expensive, you've got a family to look after, you've got a big house, you've got to have holidays, you've got to have medical, this is a great opportunity for you to embrace the gig economy because your knowledge is astounding. People will hire you to be an advisor to their company. They won't pay you the same as a proper job, but you could work for a number of different companies as a consultant. You could coach CEOs. There's a number of opportunities that you maybe haven't thought about that really you should be able to embrace. So with that, one thing I will say to you is, and it's just basically a mindset, and I do it all the time when it comes to chasing work, because I have to go out and hunt every day, even though I do the show. And between that, I'm looking at clients, working with clients all around the world. It's very exciting stuff. When you go for something and you don't get a job, there's something I want to share with you, and it's a very important mindset thing. When you are turned down and you've worked really hard on a job, there's two things what I want you to remember, and this is something that salespeople know really well. If you put effort in, you beam it, see the clients, and you've gone for it, and you sweat blood and tears, and you've got examples about how good you'd be, and they say, well, it's really good, we really like you, but we're going to go in a different direction. Your answer is next. You just go, okay, thank you, gone. Next. It's a numbers game. Go somewhere else. And I know that hurts and it's brutal and you're feeling it and you're saying, I'm feeling despair. You need to find some way of motivating yourself. But here's a little mindset about rejection. Rejection is not getting something you didn't have in the first place. Let me say that again. Rejection is not getting something that you didn't have in the first place. So you went in for a job. When you walked in, you didn't have a job. You met them, you gave them everything. You walked out, you didn't have a job. There's no difference apart from a bit of experience that went into that whole thing. And what most people don't do is turn around and say, why didn't I get that job? They go home, lick their wounds and try and guess at it. Tell them, you've given them 20 minutes, you give them 10 minutes, you give them 5 minutes, you put the whole process, you filled in everything, you sent it through. They owe you why you didn't get it. Most people don't ask because they're scared. And badger them, keep chasing them. Hi, really enjoyed the experience, thank you very much. I know I didn't get it, that's no problem. But for future, could you tell me why I didn't get it and what I need to do to improve my game? And that'll do two things. First of all, they may actually bring you back because they remember you amongst everybody else, that you were the one who wouldn't say no and you kept knocking on doors. And also, it means that if you realize what you keep doing wrong, maybe it's a suit, maybe it's your hair, maybe it's the fact you picked your nose when you ask difficult questions, I don't know. You can eliminate that. And as a numbers game, just like sales, eventually you get it right. Does that make sense? I love your comments, by the way. Leave them in here. Feel free to share this amongst whatever social media platform you are. If you love this stuff, and subscribe, follow, befriend, connect, doesn't matter, so you can get this stuff in the future. Next up, let's look at the kind of jobs that are hiring. Hope you're enjoying this. It's Speak on Stage.
Essential services, remote jobs, and quick gigs are prevailing right now as millions of furloughed employees search for work.
Temporarily, you should be willing to take a job below your level.
Eileen Shiraga is a career counselor who says now more than ever, Finding work is about tailoring the skills you already have to the jobs that are available.
The important thing is how to translate your area of expertise so that it lends itself to a teleconferencing remote situation. So you need to revisit your LinkedIn profile because that LinkedIn profile needs to be adjusted to the world out there.
LinkedIn is helping to make the job hunt simpler by encouraging employers to use the hashtags coronavirus hiring and now hiring in job postings.
No matter what pandemic we're in, there will always be jobs for salespeople.
Shiraga says industries like remote customer service, pharmacy work, grocery store and delivery services are hiring in great numbers. Areas like telemedicine, tech, and online teaching are also bringing new hires on board. Luke Markland, CEO of the moving company Bellhop, says they too have seen a steady hiring rate.
While the virus has had an impact, the industry is still ramping up for summer and a lot of the leases are expiring. So we are actively onboarding bellhops.
Markland says movers with the company are able to pick their own schedules, when and how they work, and are then assigned jobs based on their preferences.
Bellhops can make $20 to $30 an hour.
Jobs like this and information on how to file for unemployment can be found online on the New York State Unemployment Assistance website and on New Jersey's COVID-19 Jobs and Hiring portal. In Harlem, Charlie Cooper, CBS 2 News.
The one thing that's leveling about this entire pandemic is it doesn't matter whereabouts in the world you are, you've had to face losing a job and having to find yourself in a new job market. But there are other factors involved in that as well, not least the fact that you now can look at anywhere around the world to do business. You can actually be in a country where it's got a very nice, easy standard of living and the cost of living is relatively low and do business for a company that's at the higher level of paying. Now, often what we're starting to do, and I believe that Facebook does this, is they look at where you're based and they pay you based on a bracket of the country, of a region, or even the location of where you are. So that does get scaled, but certainly it's worth looking at it. Going to somewhere cheap and working for somebody expensive. That way your profit goes through the roof, or at least it gets a lot more cost effective, and it gives you options. All right then, so with that, without getting into a real estate conversation, there are a number of different options, not least starting your own job. Before we look at starting your own job, let's look at the skills that you need to do to step up. Because we've said that there's always jobs in sales, always jobs in tech, jobs in food, in removals, logistics, but what do you need to step your game up? And we're going to be actually examining what you need to do to your LinkedIn profile in a few moments' time to get that so it's optimized so people will find you and in one instant look will say, you're the person for me. Love your thoughts, love your comments, keep them coming. I answer as soon as I possibly can. I'd love to know what your thoughts are, especially if you've been unemployed for some time. Let me know what your experiences are. Don't just don't post your CV and say, I'm looking for work, I'm looking for work, I'm looking for work, because the odds are the person here will not be able to turn around to you and take you on. And they may not even think of taking you on like that. There is a structure, there is a way of doing it. And we're going to be looking at that with your LinkedIn CV. And your profile, which isn't always a CV, by the way, but I'll explain more as we go into more. So let's look at reskilling advice and how you can change the prospect of what you have already to be more appealing to a prospective employer in the future. This is Speak on Stage.
Nearly 600,000 Aussies lost their jobs in April, the largest number of jobs lost ever.
It was a tough day for Australia. A very tough day.
It's forcing a major shake-up of industries and is set to change the way we work for years to come.
So what we've really seen here, courtesy of COVID, is the digital acceleration and really 10 years worth of digital transformation now being compressed into 1 year.
But as we slowly make our way out of the pandemic, new ING future-focused research has found 1 in 3 Aussies are considering changing jobs and more than 3 million want a complete career change. But despite many wanting to mix things up, 1 in 3 are expecting opportunities to be very hard to come by, and 1 in 4 unsure they have the skills needed for the future workforce.
Those jobs and that care will increasingly be delivered via the digital interface, which is a call to action to all Australians to really boost our digital literacy.
The cybersecurity industry, healthcare, robotics, and educational technology are all expected to grow. While telemedicine, financial coaches, robotic engineers, and nurses are shaping up as in-demand jobs. We're being told to think of it as a new era of innovation and creativity.
Ask yourself and think a little bit outside the box. Where else can I apply my skills in the future, and what skills do I need to develop or even amplify as part of the new second renaissance that's emerging?
If robots aren't your thing, experts say we can also think about our future careers like a pyramid. At the bottom there are jobs that will never go away because they're related to things like food, shelter and health, while at the top there is a luxury sector linked to services which we may want but don't necessarily need. The top tip here is to focus on the bottom layer.
Look at roles in that space. Don't get drawn to the light of those businesses at the top of the pyramid. Those are the ones that are going to be suffering a lot.
And most importantly, don't underestimate your previous experience. All roles can be valuable in their own way.
A period working, say, as a casual in retail is time well spent. That tells me that they'll have had good direct experience of customer service skills. McDonald's, to my mind, is basically the best management school there is out there, better than even some of the best MBAs. There's not really such thing as a dead end of a job at this stage. You should try and think of the best and look for the best in each role that's out there.
It's also never been easier to learn from some of the masters of the world.
Whether that be via open universities, via the Khan Academy, via Coursera, for example. The great news is that we can all learn from home. What better time than now to retool and to upgrade your skills?
So some interesting insights there, and the kind of jobs that you should be looking at, which could be useful for you as well. I love the fact that they said, one of the best management training you can get is McDonald's and fast food. And it's just true, their program is second to none as how they take you through all the different levels of what you need to do. Because of the supply, the demand, the looking after your staff, everything from making burgers to real customer involvement are all potted into that kind of work. And if you're wondering, well, McDonald's, is that below me? Well, no, it's not. Think about it, what they are. If you've watched The Founder, brilliant film starring Michael Keaton, you'll see actually the breakdown of what McDonald's and Starbucks were before the pandemic. And what they were was not making coffee and not making burgers. That's not what the franchise business is. They're actually amongst the world's biggest real estate owners. That's maybe something you didn't consider. So we won't dwell on that. It's just fascinating to see that there's more going on below the surface in almost every job and every industry and every type of company than maybe you'd originally thought. So that's why when we talked about your original idea of what you're good at, what you love, and what people will pay for, you should really consider how you marry that to those types of companies. And they don't have to be in your location. If you're online, you've got decent access to internet, then you can be talking to any company about working with them as some kind of freelance outsourced person. Even as a manager, you can still do that remotely because all their staff are as well. So now what I want you to do is look at the potential of working for Google. And I mentioned this earlier, I'm not actually saying you should be working for Google. Well, there's no reason why you shouldn't consider working for Google. I've worked with Google on several projects, but here's the thing. Google are seen as one of the best employers purely because not only do they choose the best people to work with them, but they create an environment that nurtures you and brings out the best in you. All the companies that work with Google worship them, and of course we all do in some capacity. If you look at their origins and how they came to be what they are right now, employing young, smart people. And so with that, let's take a look at their recruitment process. Let's have a look at their opportunities. And I want you to think about working for Google, but then think about the many millions of startups that have got an idea, something that's really small, something that just maybe makes a little bit of money, but you could actually be involved with them and how you would approach them. If you approach them with the mindset of somebody who's studied Google and they've got 1 or 2, 3 people working with them who are all doing their own thing, coding, marketing, sales, whatever it is, visionaries, the odds are if you come in with a bigger picture, they will really welcome you. And as long as you get a job out of it in some way, shape, or form, it's worth taking that step forward. So with that, let's have a look at what you need to do to join Google. It's Speak on Stage.
Hi, I'm Brinley, and I'm a business recruiter at Google.
And I'm Okus, a technical recruiter at Google.
We're going to take a couple of minutes to walk you through how we hire at Google for all of our jobs and share some helpful details to prepare you for the experience.
The first step is getting your application to us. Start by browsing open jobs around the world on our career site and find up to 3 jobs that match your skills and interests. Try to focus on roles where you meet all of the minimum qualifications and ideally some of the preferred.
Now it's time to get your resume ready. Check out the video in the description for our tips on how to make your resume stand out. One thing to point out here is that we don't require degrees from certain universities, or a university at all, depending on the role. And your GPA is only part of your application if you're a recent grad.
After you submit your application, we have a team of highly trained pros who look over your resume and connect the dots between your experience and roles at Google. There's no one kind of Googler, so we're always looking for people who bring new perspectives and life experiences that help us build stronger teams, products, and services for all of our users.
We really care about making this part of the process fair and effective. So these reviewers focus on each candidate instead of each application for a specific job. Once your resume is reviewed, you may hear from a recruiter like us.
If you don't hear from us in a few weeks, you can assume that we're moving forward with other candidates unless otherwise noted. But we might reach out in the future if another role is a match.
After a recruiter reaches out to you, phone calls are usually the next step. Typically, we'll chat and learn more about you, your interests, experiences, etc.
You may then have phone interviews with Googlers that are more specific to the job or team. For technical roles, this often means coding interviews, and for business roles, they'll focus on skills and experience specific to the job you apply for.
The next step is on-site interviews here at Google. Yay, it's a really exciting day. You'll usually have 4 45-minute interviews where you meet a variety of Googlers, demonstrate your abilities, and have time to ask questions about your interviewer, the role, the team. You may also have lunch with a Googler to learn more about what it's like to work here.
Now let's talk through other important things to know about interviews. We use vetted, high-quality questions that are tailored to the job you've applied for and challenging, but in a good way. So don't worry, you won't be asked any brain teaser questions. Our research shows these types of questions aren't useful for assessment.
All interviewers are trained and use standardized rubrics that they're consistent and confident in their assessments.
Regardless of the job you've applied for, there are 4 attributes that we look for. First is general cognitive ability. We want to hire smart people who can learn and adapt to new situations. So this is about how you learn and solve hard problems in real life, not about GPAs or test scores.
Second is role-related knowledge. It's pretty straightforward. We want to make sure that you have the experience, background, and skills that'll set you up for success in the role.
Third is leadership. We don't just look at job titles, since different team members will need to step into leadership roles and contribute. We look for examples of things like being a team player and navigating challenges to make an impact.
And last but not least is Googliness. We want to make sure that you can thrive here, so we look for signs of comfort with ambiguity, bias to action, and a collaborative nature.
After interviews, your recruiter will share your interview feedback and scores, resume, references, and any work samples you submitted with a hiring committee. Hiring committees bring together Googlers who know the role best, but haven't met any of the applicants, in order to offer a comprehensive, unbiased review.
If the committee recommends that we hire you, that recommendation and all of your info is sent to a senior leader who provides another layer of objectivity for final review. If everything is approved, your recruiter will get in touch and make an offer.
And that's how we hire here at Google. Check out the links in the description for more resources to help you prepare, and head over to the career site to see our open jobs. We hope to see your application soon.
So there we are. That's how you get a job at Google if you're lucky enough to get one in a billion probably. But it's worth looking at that process. Most companies don't go through that stringent process, but they have something different. But here's what I'd suggest is a numbers game. Knock on doors, ring people, go down there, talk to them, bother them, get on their radar, let them tell you, don't call me anymore. and keep calling them anyway. If you are there and you show up on their radar and you show how keen you are, especially for a sales job, the odds are they're going to say, look, what do we do to get rid of this person? Do we want to get rid of this person? But you've got to do a number of different things to make sure that you are on their radar. Here's another thing I would suggest. Don't look for a job. If you look for a job, then you're in a position where there's loads and loads and loads of people all competing for that 1 or 2 slots. Why don't you just knock on loads of doors so by the time they'll turn around and say, you know what, we need to hire somebody, you're already on their shortlist because you've been in contact with them. So how do you do that? How do you stay relevant? That's what we're going to look at now as we look at 8 tips for optimizing your ability to get a job search to be successful using your LinkedIn. And this is from thebalancedcareers.com. Have a look at them. We've got more stuff on this. And if you're already using LinkedIn, then one of the things I'd suggest to you is don't think of LinkedIn as your CV. Look at LinkedIn as an assistance for people to find out more about you and for you to find out more about them. It's a great way of doing research. But don't just bung your CV on there because that's what most people do. And it's not read like that. I'll explain more as we go along. Okay, so first of all, add keywords to your profile. Number 1, why should you do that? Because Google and, well, LinkedIn has its own search engine. It's got its own mini Google inside. So if you want to show up a lot, for instance, for me, for keynote speaker, I have to put keynote speaker in almost every post of what I've done as a job. So I get shoved to the top. It's like an SEO internally. So if you're an accountant or you're a chef or any of those things, you want to make sure that it's not just once that job shows up, that actual skill set shows up. You want it to be more and more throughout your profile. So when somebody puts it in as something that they're looking for, it comes up more and more. If you don't know how this works, by the way, research it. It's a very important part of what you do, and you have time on your hands. So get it right. Number 2, join relevant groups and contribute frequently. Your posts, your contribution on LinkedIn is very important. And I know it's busy, I know it's saturated, I know now it's really difficult to get relevance and to get large numbers. Doesn't matter. Those people who are interested in you will look at your LinkedIn anyway to see what posts you get. They might want to know what relevance you are and how often you get seen by people and how many people comment, but they're more interested in seeing what you talk about. And when you have an argument or a conversation or a contribution, what is it that you say and how do you phrase it so it has an effect? Has it got a political bias? Are you ramming your ideas down people's throats? Those are the kind of things. Getting into groups is always useful because then you're in a community of people who could share stuff with you. Remember, people have to know, like, and trust you to be relevant and want to help you. Now, there's a really interesting number that I wasn't going to talk about in today's show, but I'm going to. 7, 11, and 4. 7, 11, and 4. What's that number for? I got this from Daniel Priestley when he was talking about his incredible books, A Key Person of Influence and also Oversubscribed. And we discussed this in the Toilet Paper Diaries of Ernesto Verdugo recently. 7 hours of finding out content about you in 11 different places and then 4 different locations. So let me get this into perspective. If people have been with you for 7 hours, that means looking at your content, watching your videos, hanging around with you, going to conferences with you, and had 11 different interactions. Hi, how are you? Good, great, how are you? Great. Oh, wonderful, how's the family? 11 different interactions, real and online, in 4 different locations, websites, LinkedIn, Facebook, at a conference, in the shopping mall with your family. 7 hours of meeting you with 11 interactions in 4 different locations. That's enough for people to say, I know, I like you, and I trust you. And therefore, that's a friendship. That means that they'll be more open to converse with you and possibly do some business with you. I know from all the clients I work with the Industry Icon program, they've been reading my stuff, they've been watching my videos like this, and seeing how I do stuff. By the time for us to get together, I don't need to sell the program. They've already said, I like what you do, or I love what you do, I want to be connected, I trust you. And I might have only met them for the first time. This is key. So start laying down trails and start connecting with people so they get to see who you are and what you do. And be very careful what you do put out there because you will be caught and held up for it. Think about all the celebrities that have posted something a long time ago. Think about Kevin Hart, for instance, who lost the ability, or partly by his choice of how he responded, to get to host the Oscars because he made a homophobic comment 10 years previously when he was just a budding stand-up comedian. He didn't turn around and say anything about it at the time, and he refused to turn around and say anything about it later on, and he was taken off the Oscars. Now imagine how that would affect you. Something you had as a throwaway line on any social media may come back to bite. And there's algorithms that can check your profile out and see what you put on Facebook and know exactly the kind of person you are. So be sparing, be careful, and be pointed about it. Number 3, ask for professional recommendations. Get those referrals. Get those people who you know are at the top of their food chain. People you've worked with, people that you know are your friends. Doesn't matter. Here's a way that it works on LinkedIn. Send them something first. Send them a recommendation saying you're great, I love what you do. LinkedIn will take care of that. Once it's accepted, it then turns around to the person that you've sent the stuff to, says, right, you want to send one back? And it bugs them. And you don't have to actually accept what they first say. If you say, well, no, I'd like to change it, can you emphasize this bit? It will take it back to them so they can change it. It's a really useful way to get that credibility, because if you haven't got any recommendations, why should people want to work with you? Ultimately, they buy certainty. And there's no better certainty than the fact that other people are endorsing you, even if it's your first job, but saying what a great person you are. And for their interactions with you, you've been excellent. Okay, trade professional endorsements. Again, going around to people in the industry, getting people who you know, who have got credibility to turn around. They may not have hired you, but they may know your personality. If they can turn around and say, well, you're brilliant at doing this and doing that. Your individual skill sets might be enough. You might have done marketing for somebody, or they've seen your marketing. You might have done some incredible social media posts. You might have turned up and helped somebody out, so your enthusiasm and so doesn't matter. There's a number of different ways of grading who you are, and make sure that you ask people to click on those things. It's already set up in LinkedIn. When you start endorsing other people, they are prompted to endorse you back. Otherwise, it doesn't show up. So spend some time giving away to other people, so the fact they're linked into you means they'll give away for you too. All right, number 5, remove outdated information from your experience section. Remember, it's not a CV, it's your experience. So if there's something that's not relevant, get rid of it. I showed you earlier about that hedgehog concept, that idea about the 3 circles. If not, rewind, go to the beginning of this video and watch it. It's really essential. What are you great at doing? What do you love doing? And what will people pay for? If you've chosen the kind of area that you want as your skill set, get rid of all the rest of them. Doesn't mean you have to bin them completely, but make it quite clear that this is the thing you specialize in and this is what you want. If you've done other jobs before, then by all means say I've done those other jobs before and they helped me to get better at this job, which I'm looking to work with you on. Number 6, follow companies that offer your dream job. You can do this easy on LinkedIn. Connect with them. See if you can make connections with people in the organization. If you can't get access to the CEO, follow them. If you can't get access to anybody in the organization, follow them. The radar will show. Their posts will show the things that they have as events. Attend them. So you're almost like a groupie. Now, I know that sounds a little bit creepy. Why would you want to be a group of these organizations? Because when you do go for that job interview, when you do bump into them, you can turn around and quote, I remember when you did this. I remember when you did that. I didn't like that so much, but what I would have done is this. You want to impress them? Show them that you've been interested with them for quite some time. Don't just turn up and say, which company is this? Otherwise, you're onto a hiding and onto nothing. Number 7, set up LinkedIn variety URLs. So that makes that, you know that bit when you have linkedin.com and a backslash and then some kind of number or letter. Make sure that that is you. Make sure it says you. I am the linkedin.com / Dave Crane Dubai. And I've been that for many, many years. I own that domain effectively. I know it belongs to LinkedIn, but that means that I don't get confused with anybody else. Yeah, I'm based in Dubai. If I leave Dubai, I'll probably still keep the same name. Why? Because I've been here 30 years. I want people to know the association with me. And if you don't know how to do that, Google it. It's easy, but you can start owning that special point. There's a number of different things you can do actually with LinkedIn that are really important. I'll share them with you. In fact, I'll show you a special tip exclusively with this, I think, if you're really, really good. All right, here's the last one on this, the 8 tips Update your contact information. Make sure they can find you. Mobile, WhatsApp. If you've got a website, if you've got your other things that are on social media, do it. Most people just have that connections bit and they just give the link to their profile, not even a mobile number. And I know if you're female, you're thinking, I don't want to put my mobile number down. I understand that as well. But make sure you got some kind of email address or some kind of contact. Because here's the thing, if they can't get in contact with you and they've tried, they'll just move on to somebody else. It's a buyer's market. It's the best time ever to be looking for staff. Because you can get anybody anywhere super cheap because everyone's desperate. So make sure you're very accessible and very available. So now I'm going to take my phone, which is here, which is what you're looking at on the screen. I'm going to close this. I'm going to open up my LinkedIn. I'm going to share with you an incredible tip. Really, really powerful. Okay. There's a couple of my friends showing up here. So I'm going to open up my profile. Okay. I'm viewing my profile. It should be here. All right, so now you can see this, Dave Crane. I'm not going to share too much with you on this because you can look at it anytime. I've got videos there. I've got like 60,000 people as followers and connections. I've got all my different things. Notice here, by the way, when I put my different job titles, I've got them all running at the same time, and they all express that I'm doing things at a certain level with keywords. Speaker shows up a lot. Why? Because I want to be seen as a speaker and communications expert. But I want to show you something in particular, not just the skills quizzes and all the rest of it, the projects. Let's go back up to the top. And this is something that most people don't know. Now, you see the picture of me, and I won't even waste time sharing with you the actual extra real estate, which is a headline, that bit there where you can put a background that you want, that people can find you with a website to it, if that's what you want to do as a freelancer. But next to my name there, it's got a little, you can see this, just a little speaker icon. Now that, when you look at it, and you can only do it on your mobile, you can't actually update it on your laptop, is for you to say how to pronounce your name. So if your name was, Jerzy Belowski, then you get people get it wrong. Jerzy how do you say it? So most people say Jerzy Belowski, so people can find out who you are. But there's something else you can do with it. Let's see if we can get it here. Hi, I'm Dave Crane. I'd love to spend some quality time with you to teach you how to speak, how to grow your brand, and to take your business to the next level. Have you seen what I did there? I didn't move my lips. That gives you 10 seconds to put down an introduction to who you are, what you do. You can mention your name in it so we can see how to say it properly, but you can make it an extra mini connection with everybody who goes to your profile by leaving a voice message for them when they arrive. Most people don't know this. Most people don't use it. You have to use your mobile to record it, but when you've got it, what a useful way of making that extra percentage of connection with people when you connect with them on LinkedIn. Hope that's useful for you. Next up, let's look at the cheat sheets as we see how you can prospect to get that perfect job. I hope this is useful for you. I want to do something all about getting a job, especially with the gig economy on SpeakOnstage for quite some time. And let me know your thoughts, your comments. Share it, like it. There's a lot of people out there who could really do with knowing this stuff. And if they're connected to you, share it with them right now. So this is pure money in the bank for you, hopefully. How to get a top job in a post-COVID gig economy. I'm all over the place now. Here's me getting excited, sharing stuff with you, and suddenly I can't speak. Cheers, by the way. And you can see from this is my Christmas mug. See? Look at that. Rudolph has big red nose as well. And I've been drinking from this cup for about nine months since lockdown. I've washed it since. But it just goes to show how much every day blurs into the last day when you're in lockdown. Okay. It's a nice cup of tea. Okay, so with that, I want to share with you the insights that I have for you to be able to get the job that you want, to move forward, and to get hired every single time. For me personally, I'm in that kind of environment. I don't look for a job from anybody. What I'm looking for instead is the ability to work with them as a freelancer on their project. So let's get into the first thing here. Number one, work out what it is you're offering. Show some proficiency. Show some examples of why you are the person that they should be working with. Don't just say, I'd like to do this. It's not that kind of market anymore. What do you offer? Look at that diagram I shared with you earlier. What are you good at doing? What do you love doing? What will people pay for? And what are they all looking for? Be in tech, be in logistics, be in finances, be in an industry that they want. Show that you've already got that, because I guarantee they've got thousands of other people all looking for the same thing. So you want to make sure that you are very good at this. Okay, number 2, who's looking? How can you make it easier for them? Because they're rubbing their hands, but at the same time, we want to spend less time working on looking for somebody and more time training that person to slot in straight away. So as soon as you can possibly get in that position, then do so. So find out what it is that they want. Make an anonymous call. You don't have to find out at the job interview. You can send them a message or talk to the person on reception who will know all these details anyway. What can you do to make it easier for them to prove that you're actually good at doing this? I'll share with you some ideas on this later on, but there's a number of ways that you can cheat the business, cheat the system without actually doing anything illegal, so they'll turn around instantly and say, you are my man, or you are my girl, and you're the person that I want to work with. Let's take, for instance, number 3. Embrace the notion of certainty and make it impossible for them to ignore you. Let me share with you, I don't even know if I got it in these notes, but the Trojan Horse Project. If you can create examples of work you've done that's just like the job that you're looking for, but you did it as a freelancer, or you did it in your own time, or you did it using connections and you did it for absolutely free, but this is what you'd want to hire me for. I already proved to you I can do it for you, and so with certainty, then people will want to work with you. You want to make it impossible for men to ignore you. And so if they do ignore you, then you can move on to the next person in that industry. It's a numbers game, but make sure that you have got enough to prove that anybody who turns you down is completely rubbish in what their association and their idea of what people should really be. Okay, number 4, create accessible proof, not just LinkedIn. LinkedIn's important, but make it easy for them to not only find what it is that you do, but to Google who you are and what you do. If you can show up in other radars, if you've got news clippings, not even clippings, evidence when people search for you, but your name comes up doing a certain stuff. Because it's not just about that person who's searching for you. That person who's searching for you will then pass it on to other people. We mentioned this earlier when we talked about Google. Google have a process that when you start going for interviews with them, you go for a number of different sections of Google. So they meet you, they connect with you, they interview you, but then other people look at you, look at your profile, make decisions before you even get to see them on whether they like you. Make it easy for them to find you because you've done stuff that shows up on Google. I'm not just talking about Google, but make it easy for a third party to be able to find you. I've got a number of websites that when you look for Dave Crane or Dave Crane Dubai, then you see Dave Crane with lots of evidence of the people I've worked with, the gigs I've done. You know without even looking too hard that I can produce. Why is that? Well, because I want to make sure it's certainty. I want to give them easy, accessible proof that I am what I do, and I do what it says on the tin very easily. All right, number 5, get testimonials, video, LinkedIn photos, published articles, letters thanking you, all these different things that show people that you are the real deal. And they're often in a situation where, and especially nowadays, I won't talk too much about nepotism, but I've seen it in every industry, where they've got a member of the family who's pitching for the same job, or a friend who's pitching for the same job. That's a person that they want to get in there. You've got to show up on a radar with no connection to that person who's hiring, but they go, I'd have to be an idiot to not hire this person. Look at what they've done before. Look at what they're going to do for us. Look at all the different profiles and the recommendations, and we've even got videos showing what they've done. If you can't do it as a specific job or as your first job, do it for charity. Volunteer your time. Just make sure that when you do show up, they say, yeah, I've seen all about you. You're somebody that we want to bring on. You did it for free for them. We'll do it for us, and we'll give you a wage. Number 6, show success stories through the eyes and the words of others who have benefited from you. This is key. When I mentioned earlier about Daniel Priestley and his book Oversubscribed, one of the things about Oversubscribed, it says if you talk about yourself, people are not going to believe you. But if you show the evidence of how good you are by showing the people you've worked with and what they've got as a result of you being there, using them as referrals. And you can do that with a podcast interview with all your clients who say, you know what, I love what you do. They'll be happy to go on your show. They'll be happy to talk about what they do. It's free publicity. But at the same time, that association means that people looking at you go, wow, you know all these people. Maybe you're not just a fly-by-night. Maybe you're somebody I need to be working with. All right. Number 7, show and share projects like the ones that they're going to be hiring you for. So don't just say, I've done stuff, you should hire me, because they're going to say, well, what has that got as relevance to me? You want to be able to show that it's got some kind of fingers in the same kind of pies or same kind of industry as you're doing. And if it's not the same industry, don't worry about that. If you're looking to pivot, just show the skill sets are transferable. Remember, you're selling the idea that you are a no-risk employee. You can do this, especially if you're pushing yourself as a freelancer and you're saying, well, let's look at this on a project by project basis. They might not be hiring you full time. They might not want you full time, but they certainly might turn around and hire you on a basis of do this job and then let's see how that goes. If you do that again and again and again, you end up with a full-time job with the same clients without some of the benefits agreeably, but you can work for them and other people at the same time, which overshadows the not having a proper job because you've got more income coming through, so you can buy your own insurance, you can create your own pension, you can get your own rent paid. You don't necessarily have to have that handout from somebody else. Number 8, be visible and proactive online, showing your true character. This is important. Many people don't do it, and I despair, especially on LinkedIn where I spend a lot of time looking at what people do. But here's the thing. If you're posting all the time and you're saying, you know, these are life coaching things, do this because it makes you better and do that because it makes you better, and these are the questions you should ask. And somebody goes, wow, I love your stuff. What do you do? I'm a plumber. Or what do you do? I'm an accountant. Right, so why don't you talk about numbers or how to save money in your business, or how if somebody hires you, you can help them to find more clients because you've got a great client base and you can give them tips on how you can leverage what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? The point is that you need to show that what you do is related to what people can hire you from. If you don't know that and you don't see it, then they're not going to see it. They might love your post, they might interact with it, but that's vanity metrics. I've got loads of friends who've got hundreds of thousands of followers. None of them will ever pay them any money. Why? Because they don't like them for the stuff that they do for a living. They like them because they like their posts. And there's nothing wrong with that until you try and get paid for it. And then you'll find it a bit more challenging. Number 6, build up your personal brand consciously. People will want to be associated with you, they'll want to find you, but they want to know that you are the real deal. If you look anywhere about who I am and what I do, you'll see me speaking. These shows are designed so if you want to know whether Dave can talk or not, and Dave can talk to your staff, and Dave can help you, and Dave does CSR and all sorts of, it's all here. Why? Because every time I post, it's got that evidence running all the way through it. Make sure that's true of you. Build up a brand consciously. Your personal brand is so important, especially in the gig economy, because if they can't see who you are and they don't know what it is that you do, they won't hire you. Or if you've built up a brand that says, I do this, and then you're looking for a job over there, again, they won't hire you because you've never proven that's what you do. There's a lot to be done on that. I talk about personal branding a lot, so I won't spend too long on it, but it is important. All right, number 6, be aware that you are always being watched. This is true. You're looking at me. You might not say, hi, Dave. Hopefully you do in the comment section. I'll say hi back because I love to get connected to you. But it's amazing how many people I bump into who say, Dave, I love your show. I watch your show all the time. Don't comment. Don't say anything other than that. But in real life, when I see them, they tell me. There must be thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who I have no idea who they are at all. And if you think about it, for the Rugby Sevens for 20 years, I was going out on stage in the middle of a pitch with a microphone to at least 45,000 people in that arena over 3 days, and we'd have a digital footprint of about 1 billion people watching the Rugby Sevens all around the world. At a very conservative estimate over 20 years, there's quite a few people I've never met who would recognize me and go, oh, you're that guy. You're that guy who was dressed as Batman or ringleader of a circus or Pirates of the Caribbean. It doesn't matter what they know me for. It's that recognition value that comes from it. So be very aware that people are watching you even if you don't know they're watching you. And this one, last but not least, Make it easy for people to get in touch with you immediately. Otherwise, they'll forget about it. It's that shiny object syndrome. People get distracted very simply. They'll see you, they'll look at you and say, that's great, I've got to do this. Oh, I'll do it after I've done this. And then before you know it, they've gone somewhere else and they completely forgot you existed. Only when they're reminded of you will they come back to you. So I'm going to move my head as usual to one side, to there, move my chair as well. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, it's all there. This is really useful. A lot of this stuff is the stuff that's it's a cheat sheet thing. It's not necessarily what they'd tell you if you went to a careers advisor, but they should tell you this stuff anyway. But you get it for free here with me on Speak on Stage. Not a bad way to start. Hope this is useful for you. Love your comments and thoughts as well. Meanwhile, if you've decided that what you really want is to position yourself well already in your industry, because you realize that there's been disruption, people have lost their position, and you have an opportunity to be able to step forward and really be the best in your industry, then that's what I specialize in as the Industry Icon Program. So let me tell you about that. When you go to SpeakOnstage.com, you'll be greeted by a big picture of me. Hello, Big Dave. Yeah, you need to get rid of that bit in front of you. I think your moustache is uneven. And your beard's looking a bit, maybe you should dye it. Just saying. Cheers, bud. So with that, you need to look at this. Go to this button above. Can you see that? The Industry Icon button. Click on that. When you click on that, you get taken to this page. Scroll down and get the opportunity to take the free survey. With this survey, you're able to then look at what it is that you've got missing from your personal brand, your connections, and then start becoming a key person of influence. Once you fill this in, you also choose what kind of program would you like to do. You can go to, first of all, Speak on Stage and do an online course for speaking just to learn in your own time from your phone. You could choose to work with me on specific different subjects. There's a whole lot of different things I can help you with, which I'll show you in a moment with a roadmap. You can work to me on a one-to-one. I'll keep these fingers up so it doesn't look really weird. On a one-to-one basis over a long period of time. And I also specialize in working with females in leadership. So if you're a female and you're wondering how you can get hold of a mentor that really understands, most of my clients, to be honest, are female. So I've got the Maya Mentorship Program, which is available for you as well. So take a look at that and I'm sure it'll be really effective for you. With that, then, there's loads of different options. I work with you on a number of different things. Here's a snapshot of a roadmap. So when you start out with your new part of your business and you're positioning yourself as an expert in it, we look at all the different ways that we can create success. So a little look at this about connecting with others and creating special events that you design where people can come along and see your expertise. Make sure you've got an ecosystem of clear victories that you can put onto your CV and share on social media. Collaborate with others on their plans, so then they talk to. There's loads of different ways of doing it. We have whole strategies for how to get yourself to that level, including a signature talk and a ton of other things. So with that in mind, it's a really powerful thing for you. Fill this in, connect with me directly through Speak on Stage or just from my social media, and we can have a 10-minute chat about how I can work with you directly to position you as an industry icon. Very exciting, and there's never been a better time to prove who you are than when people are online at home during this pandemic of lockdown and they're just searching for things that are interesting in their field. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the show. We looked at lots of different areas of getting a job, the gig economy. We showed you what you can do to reskill yourself. We looked at all the different opportunities you could have. We taught you how to get a job at Google. Doesn't mean you're going to get that job, but certainly in the thousands and millions of tech startups, you may have your own tech startup. That process, go back and look it up on the show. There's loads of stuff in here, or look it up on YouTube. It's up to you. It's worthwhile. If you're looking to employ people, that process is useful for you to understand. If you're going to be joining a tech company, or you're looking after the PR, or the HR, or the sales elements, there's loads of stuff in here that can really help you recruit that team. You don't necessarily have to be a manager. You could be a mentor, but now look at the fact that you could mentor people online. You can also have a team if you're a startup with 20 staff, where you're only paying them for the jobs that they're doing. You don't need to have them on your books. You just need to be able to contact them, contract them, and get them to do business for you. There's so many new opportunities that you may never have considered before, but hopefully, at the very least, this show's helped to stimulate some ideas for you. I may do a follow-up to this show, looking at the actual interview process, because in future episodes we're going to have guests on the show, and we'll be talking to some real experts, so they'll be sharing with you how they would recommend that they did it, you do it, and how you'll find more success. Meanwhile, it's come to the end of today's show. Wow, hasn't stopped. Hopefully there's loads of opportunities for you to make some money. Hopefully you're feeling a little bit better after watching this, and hopefully you can share this with your friends so they can benefit from this whole experience too. I'll be back with more shows in the future. Keep looking out. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel so you get to see everything there, even secret stuff I don't share with everybody else. But you only get it when it shows up as relevance when you subscribe. Also, follow me, befriend me, and connect with me on all the other channels. Wherever you're on, then I will be sharing with you great content, great ideas, and give you great opportunities in the future. It's a real pleasure to have you here. Hopefully, it gets you to make more money and more success. Meanwhile, I'm going to play out with a video all about redefining yourself, finding your own hedgehog, and finding your own success, because you should do it every single day. It's a pleasure to have you here. Look after yourself. Stay safe. It's Speak on Stage. I want to ask you a question. What defines you? What if you lost your money, you lost your job, you lost your house, you lost your shoes, you lost your friends, you lost the ability to turn around and say to people, this is what I want from my life? What if you had no rights? What if you had no clothes? What if you had nowhere to live? What if your passport went and you lost your ability to take a plane to anywhere in the world? What if a bank didn't recognize you? What if nobody recognized you? What if you lost your health? And on top of that, you lost your will? What would you be after all those things? The truth is, you would still be you. Your phone, your gadgets, the people around you, they're what define you right now, but that's not who you truly are. The person you truly are is whoever you decide that you're going to be. And you can decide that person every single day. Every day you have a choice. You can stay where you are. You can look at the past. You can look at all the trophies on the shelf and the photos and the selfies of the places that you've been and the people you've met. And you can say, that is me. Or you can say, that was me yesterday. The one that comes today and the one that comes tomorrow. It could be anybody. And the adventure is, I'm going to define them right now. And that's why you create a roadmap and you define yourself every single day.